Welcome to another episode of Out of Spec Dave, where today I'm really excited to have my first participant from Europe. Her name is Sara, and she lives in Sweden. And she reached out to me via email and said, "Hey, Dave, listen, I think, I've been watching your channel. I've been watching Kyle's channel, and I noticed that you haven't had anyone on from Europe yet. So if you'd like to hear my perspectives, could I come on the channel?" I said, "Absolutely." So let's get into it and meet Sara. Sara, welcome to the channel, and thank you so much for reaching out. And the fact that I'm doing these now virtually is a good thing because you're all the way over in Europe. In fact, you mentioned to me that you're in Spain today. Tell me about that.
That's correct. I'm down on vacation in Spain. I know a couple of people down here that live in the southern parts of Spain. So I thought, why not go away from all that snow and crap that we have back home in Stockholm in Sweden?
Yeah.
It started snowing yesterday, so I'm really glad being down here where it's about 18 degrees, 20 degrees Celsius on the days, and beautiful weather, and I don't have to have any snow or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm down here for in total 4 weeks, and then I will go back home to Stockholm in Sweden after that.
Very, very good. I'm jealous. I mean, it's a super windy day here in Connecticut, and it's starting to get cold. I know that we do the Fahrenheit thing here in the States, but I think it was in the 20s this morning. So we're starting to get some cold weather. You mentioned to me that you have a Tesla Model 3 now. And you had a BMW 330, I guess one of the plug-in, the 330Es, is that what they call them?
Yeah, that's correct.
But tell me a little bit about you and where you grew up and what kind of cars you've had in your life, and I'm just curious to learn a little bit about that.
I've lived all my life in Stockholm in Sweden, actually, where I grew up, and but I've been working all my life in the IT industry. So I had the possibility to travel a lot. As I mentioned to you earlier, I've been to the States a couple of times, even for like 3 or 4 months, traveled a lot to go on vacations in different places. I like to go down to the Canary Islands. Cars I've had before, the BMW has been mainly gas-driven cars. It's like things like other BMWs. I've had Toyotas, I've had Seats, I've had a couple of different types of cars, and there's also been times where I have didn't have a car at all.
Right.
It depends on the life situation, basically.
So when you jumped over to the plug-in hybrid, tell me, what was your motivation to do that?
I wanted to go to electric, but as many other people, I was a little bit afraid about range anxiety and stuff like that. And
I thought I would share this in the background while you and I are talking.
Yep.
I was curious about the infrastructure in Sweden. So what's your situation where you live? Were you able to charge this car at home, or how did you keep the battery up?
It's a little bit different in Europe, I believe. There's a lot of people living in apartment buildings, which is not as common, I think, in the States. So most people actually don't have their own driveways where they can charge a car. So there is an infrastructure on certain streets where you can charge your car. So I had to charge my car about 100 meters away from where I live, and there were only a couple of chargers at the place. So sometimes they were occupied, sometimes not, and that plug-in hybrid took a very long time to charge because it was only charging at 3.3 kilowatts. So it took some time to charge it. Yeah.
What made you leap from the plug-in hybrid? I would think that with sort of the limited options you had for charging where you live, maybe you'd be a little reluctant to go to a full battery electric vehicle, but nonetheless, you did.
Yeah, I actually, after a while, I thought that with the driving pattern I had, not driving long journeys, mostly relatively short ones, it actually worked quite well with even with the BMW. So most of the part I could drive electric on that one, and that made me take the step, so to speak, to go fully electric, since I understood that I'm not going to have any problems.
Right. And you got a white one with black interior, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So there you go. There we're showing that on the screen right now.
Yeah, it's a 2021 model, so it looks like the correct one, the correct interior you have there.
Yeah. And the charging plug that you use for your Tesla, that's the CCS Combo 2 plug, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. All the Tesla 3s and Ys in Europe have CCS2 connectors in them, so none of them have your American plugs.
Right. I know we're going through a mess right now with two different standards, and Tesla just announcing that what they're now calling the North America charging standard, which is really just the proprietary Tesla plug that's unique to the US. And you know, and I've got this little adapter now, Sarah, that allows me to go and plug into a you know, a CCS one type one. You know, or whether I go to Electrify America or not, and for me it's good because I've got the ability to charge my Tesla no matter what kind of a network it is. But
yeah, exactly.
and what percentage of the time do you charge your Tesla at actual Tesla superchargers versus going to off-brand chargers?
Since July, when I bought the car, I've only done it twice to the supercharger.
Okay. And
for the most part now, yeah, for the most part now,
charge up in your car for the most part. Where do you charge it?
For the most part, I charge back home in the garage in my apartment building.
In the building that you live in, you do have the level 2.
I'm fortunate enough to they installed 5 level 2 chargers in the garage a couple of months back, and I'm lucky enough to have one of those.
So is that a dedicated? That's just your spot that you can park at?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And do you have to pay extra for that as a feature of like your rent or something, or how does that work?
Yeah, and I have one rent for the garage itself, and then they have added on some. Totally, it cost me about 450 crowns, which should be similar to $45 or something per month. But out of that $45, 250 is for the electricity itself, and I pay something extra for the fact that I have a possibility to charge.
Right, that's great. And so, have you taken your car on many road trips over there in Europe?
Only a couple of shorter trips around Stockholm. Since it's I pay a flat fee for the electricity, I thought, why not go around Stockholm and visit some small towns around Stockholm and have a little bit fun, go out, have a coffee or something. And I've done some trips with friends of mine and my brother and so on. So, but not any long ones that forces me to charge at the superchargers or anything.
Right. Well, listen, you can watch our videos to learn how. At least it's so easy with a Tesla. It's actually it's downright boring with a Tesla. That's why I jumped away from Tesla for a while, just to play with all the the different cars that are coming out here in the United States, because it just, I mean, I'm halfway kidding. I just get intrigued, and I'm sort of like the dog in the movie Up, Squirrel. It's like, oh, I see something, to go to it, and yeah. So I'm curious about like the percentage of cars in Stockholm that are EV versus gas or diesel. Are you seeing a big uptake? And do you think is there an uptake from an environmental motivation reason, or is it tax incentive? What's the state of play over in Sweden right now with EVs?
Yeah, I would say it's both, actually, or has been. The problem is that a couple of weeks back, the government actually took away the subsidies for EV cars. So we used to get around equal to around $7,000 when we bought a new one, and that was going to be lowered to about 5 after the New Year's, but now they took it away. So all cars that we buy after the 8th of November will get no subsidies at all.
Huh.
So that's bad. Well, the interest for electric cars has risen a lot lately, and actually the last day that we could buy cars and still get subsidies, there were like 400 or 500% increase for that specific day for people buying electric cars. So
right.
there were a lot of interest.
Now, and so. Is what percentage of cars, not specific percentage, but do you see a lot more Teslas than other brands? What's the most popular EV that you see on the roads in Sweden?
I would say Teslas, actually. We see a lot of Teslas every day, both 3s and Ys, and of course S's and X's, but mostly 3s and Ys.
Okay.
And there is a fair bit of other EVs also, but I think Tesla dominates a lot.
The other day, I pulled up to a stoplight just here on Route 1 here in Connecticut, and I think there were 4 Model 3s, 2 Model Ys. I drive a Model S, and there was an X on the other, and everybody's looking at each other. And in back in the day, we used to wave to each other, or it was like, oh wow, there's another Tesla. I remember seeing. I was driving south on Route 684 in Westchester County, New York here. I remember seeing the Model X for the first time on the road, and I almost crashed because I was so excited to see it. And now it's like it's like a Honda Accord now. Everywhere you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's not novelty anymore.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the for the average person are there enough affordable EVs in Sweden that the masses are moving over, or is this really considered to be sort of for the well-to-dos, or those that are able to afford them more so? I mean, do people buy these as an economic decision because it's going to save them money?
There's still not so many really affordable EVs in Europe. There is a lot of new Chinese brands coming in, which are a lot more affordable than Teslas and others. For instance, MG has been having the new MG4 and MG5s and stuff like that, which are actually a lot cheaper than a Tesla 3, for instance. Old British brand MG that used to manufacture sports cars and stuff like that, but they went bankrupt maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and was bought by a Chinese brand. So it's SICS or something like that, which a Chinese brand that owns them nowadays.
Huh. Yeah, I'm just pulling this up. The MG, which is it? The 5?
The 5, the Marvel R, the 5, the 4 is the new one. The 4 is the newest one of the lot, and that was built as a EV from the beginning. The other ones have been gasoline cars before they were made electric.
So the MG4 is a dedicated platform. That's not bad.
It looks very, very good actually. And when I come back, I'm going to test drive one, because we haven't. Before I went down to Spain, couldn't test drive it. I've felt it and sat in it and stuff like that, but I wasn't allowed to test drive it.
Huh. Yeah, that looks pretty good. What other brands of cars do you see on the roads in Sweden that are pretty popular? And that's one that's up and coming, right? That's like brand new.
That's brand new, and I've seen a lot of European YouTube channels that review that car, and it has gotten very good reviews actually, and partly because it's affordable and still rather fun and good looking actually.
Yeah,
it's not as hilarious when it comes to 0 to 60 as a Tesla, but still it's like 7 something seconds from 0 to 60, which is it's okay.
What's the price of fuel like where you live?
Oh, our fuel is a lot more expensive than yours. We pay.
Yeah, so I don't know how to equate it. Maybe you could help me. What is like? How much does it cost for gas in where you live versus.
Yeah, the thing is, in Sweden and most of Europe, some of the price raises has been due to the war in Ukraine and oil prices going up everywhere. But we pay for 1 liter, which is 1 liter is about 0.6 US gallons. So we pay like for 1 liter of normal petrol we pay, and the diesel prices are even higher. They can go as high up as 25 crowns per liter and even more. And some of the reasons for that is that we have to, or the government has decided that to make the cars more environmentally friendly. They add in biodiesel and stuff like that in the fuel. So that makes it a lot more expensive than it normally is.
Wow,
So
look
you
at
see
this.
that.
I'm just looking at this chart here.
Yep.
And Sweden looks like it's the most expensive with the exception of Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Sweden's dependence on oil coming into the country versus generating it themselves. How reliant are you how self-sufficient are you from an energy producing standpoint?
We have no oil whatsoever in no oil production in Sweden. The closest we have is Norway, because they have the North Sea oil. That used to be very expensive back 20 years back, but nowadays with rising gas prices and everything, oil prices, a lot of oil comes from Norway and also, of course, from the Arab countries and other places in the world. But I don't know the exact percentage of how much oil that actually comes from Norway, but that's the closest for us anyway.
You know, Sarah, what's interesting to me is Norway being such sort of, I mean, Kyle he was just in Norway yesterday. I think he's in Finland today. The fact that Norway seems to have adopted EVs, it's like if you want to look to what the future is going to look like, that's part of the reasons why he travels over there. Besides which, it's an absolutely spectacularly beautiful country. But when you think about, if you really want to see what is going to perhaps the States will look like in maybe 5 or 10 years, just go to Norway today, because the foreshadowing is real. It's on the ground. Why do you think, what is it about Norway that they have moved to such a high percentage of EVs as opposed to really any other country in the world? What is it about them that's done that?
I think it could partly be subsidies because they have on gas cars, they have very, very high taxes. And the gas cars are really expensive in Norway compared to Sweden and Denmark, for instance. So I guess in the long run, the ratio between electric EVs and gas cars they're probably on an equal scale what you pay for them, since they get subsidies for electric cars, and I think that helps.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And now that Sweden has gone the other way, taking away the subsidies, but the problem is there aren't enough cheap electric cars here in the States today. I mean, you look at what GM did by bringing out this Hummer, right? It's just like
ridiculous.
What's going on with that thing? I mean, I understand Halo cars and you want to have this brand, this crazy brand, but I think about even when I think about lucid strategy, and I kind of agree with it, that it's important to bring out the more expensive cars from an economic standpoint to survive, like Tesla did. First the Model S, then the Model X, then they rolled out the 3 and the Y, and now there's rumors about a 2 that's coming out. So I see that kind of evolution, but it's some of the cars that are out there today, like the Kia Niros and the Konas and Bolts. It's expensive to build them. We're running into a situation here in the States right now where there's a lot of cars that are being sold, and a lot of the cars are being sold with free incentives to charge your cars at, let's say, Electrify America. And a lot of people are now being disincentivized to put in a level 2 charging station at their home if they are able to. And I understand it's not practical for everyone to be able to do that. But we're running into a bit of a train wreck here for the pace of cars that are being sold versus the amount of electrical places to charge them. And I think we're going to get into a rocky time here over the next couple of years. I'm curious in Sweden for the number of cars that are on the road versus the amount of places to charge them. Is that a pretty good ratio now? And how do you see that going in the
No,
future?
it's not nearly enough.
Not nearly enough.
Uh,
Okay.
no, absolutely not. But the government, when they took away these incentives for tax incentives for EVs, actually at the same time are going to put in a lot of money to build new loading infrastructure. So hopefully that should be better. But it still takes some time. It takes time to have all the electrics, to take time to get the permits and all that stuff to actually put in new places. That could take a year or two before it's actually up and running.
Yeah. And then when you go to a public charging station in Sweden versus, let's say, petrol, gas, diesel, whichever, is it cheaper to charge your electric car or is it about the same?
No, it's a lot cheaper recently the prices for electricity has risen, but it used to be like maybe half the price.
If you were to tell someone in Sweden who's not driving an electric car today, are you one of these people that says, "Oh, you got to drive electric, and here's the reasons," or like, "Hey, listen, whatever"? But I'm curious where you are in that sort of equation.
I think I'm trying to influence people in driving electric cars, but not pushing them to do anything like that. But regularly, when some new people are traveling with me in the car, I let them try to drive it for a while, and
that's a great idea.
Also, of course, that makes them more interested.
That's a great idea. If you put someone who's never driven an electric car before and put them behind the wheel, it sells itself. And it's nothing about the environment. It's just they drive better, in my opinion. I still like three pedals. Don't get me wrong. I'll take a 911 Turbo S, take that out for a spin on the weekend. But especially for the daily driving and the commuting, which a lot of people do here, 30, 40, 50 miles, maybe max round trip. The vast majority of the country, at least on the bookend coasts, are I think eligible. Take one car in your family and swap it out and go to an EV. The challenges we have here in the States, though, are like towing. And a lot of people are trying to tow with these EVs, and then you get cold weather. It's every year. I'm sure you have the same thing every year when the cold weather sets in. You get all these people that bought their cars in May and June and July, their EVs, and they're used to getting whatever the range is, and then all of a sudden they're like, "My car doesn't work. What's going on? It was advertised, and I was told it would get 258 miles of EPA rated range, and I'm only able to go 150." And it's like, people start to understand that weather, in terms of temperature, affects the battery packs. It affects all these things.
It's kind of fun when the first snow comes in Sweden, which it did in Stockholm yesterday. First of all, it gets chaos. No buses are able to travel because of the snow.
Wow.
It's the same thing every year, but after a couple of days, everything normalizes again. And everybody, the first day, are trying to switch to winter tires, and all the tire shops are occupied by people that.
No one thinks like, here it is, early October, mid-October. Let me put on my snow tires now, right? Let me get the Gislaveds or the Hakkapeliitas or whatever it is you're putting on there.
I was actually smart. I put them on before I left for Spain. So now I have them on when I come back to Sweden.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's smart, Sara. Tell me just a little bit about away from cars in Sweden. What about public transportation with respect to electric? Do you see the buses and all of that converting over to electric?
We have in Stockholm. There is a fair amount of buses that are hybrids, but we also have recently gotten some buses that are battery electric buses. So that's very good. It's not many of them, but I guess more and more for every year.
And I appreciate taking the pulse of what's going on over in Sweden and listening to it, because this is all very much new to me. I know that Kyle, he's been over there quite a bit.
Yep.
And really tries out the infrastructure and brings back a lot of the, some of the charging stations that he's shown me in Germany that we've seen are just unbelievable.
Some of them were unbelievable.
When you end up having a destination be, oh yeah, I want to go charge my car because I can go have dinner there, or I can go hang out upstairs. And there was one, he said, that had a pool. I think the pool might have gotten shut down when he got there, but it's to me, it's going to be an interesting transition to making it so much easier to charge all these electric cars. But in the meantime, I'm super jealous of your Spain. Where in Spain are you?
It's in Fuengirola, which is on Costa del Sol, further south in Spain.
Farther south, so you got the warm
on the south coast.
You got the warm weather. What's the name of the town you're in?
Fuengirola. It's close to Marbella and Malaga. When it comes to charging in Europe and Sweden, we are quite fortunate, I would say, in that we have all the Tesla 3s and Ys have CCS2 connectors on them. All the Superchargers have CCS connectors on them. The V3s have CCS connectors. The V2 chargers have both the ones for Model S and X and the CCS chargers, because the S's and X's have other connectors here in Sweden. Not the same ones you have in the States, but they look very similar to the Type 2 connector, but they are slightly different in.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I think they need some. It might be different in the new ones that get delivered recently, but otherwise they have to have some kind of converters to use in the CCS2 connectors, but. For the most part, it's very easy having a Tesla 3 or Y, since you can connect it everywhere.
Right. So that's interesting. I didn't realize that. So you're saying on the Model S's and the Ys, those work.
S's and X's.
S's and X's. You're able to charge at any Tesla Supercharger, but if you go off-brand and you try and plug in, let's say, whatever it is, do you have Circle K? Is that a popular one?
The connectors look similar to the ones where you charge your AC charging, but there are some differences in them. I believe they are a little bit deeper or something like that. There are some differences in them that don't make them exactly compatible, because they use that connector even for DC charging, which is a little bit strange. So I don't know exactly why they used a different plug-in back in for S's and X's.
Huh. Interesting.
Another thing, of course, is that we have in Europe come a lot further with opening up the superchargers for other EVs. Not all of them are open yet, but more and more gets opened every month, actually. So that makes it easier for people with other EVs to actually use the superchargers also. Yeah,
I know. I saw Kyle the other day charging a VW Buzz at a Tesla supercharger, and it's just like, it's just it's amazing to be able to see that. Yesterday I was at Electrify America. I made a video that's going to be coming out in a few days. It's like there are more than 10 ways to charge my Tesla, and I started off with level 1 in the garage, level 2 in the garage, and I went to all these different stations. And as I was charging at Electrify America, which is the CCS network here, and I'm charging my Tesla, there were like 3 guys with ID4s looking at me strange. First they were like, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and then they don't realize, they don't realize I've got this secret little $250 device that allows me to plug in. But it hasn't gone the other way yet. When I was at EA yesterday charging my Tesla, there were some people looking at me, funny looks. And I'll tell you another thing that happened, which was interesting. There was this woman who pulled up in a, the Jeep Wranglers, they're like off-roady type things. She had a Wrangler Unlimited. It was a a JL model, so one of the new
Mm-hmm.
platforms, and it was the plug-in hybrid. And
Yep.
so she came over to, first she went to Electrify America and tried to
Mm-hmm.
plug it in. Then she went
Yep.
to the Tesla. There were urban superchargers. She tried to plug it
Mm-hmm.
in. Then she went to an EV Go, which had it's an older unit. It's a 50 kilowatt older unit that has
Yep.
CHAdeMO, Tesla, and
Mm-hmm.
CCS
Yep.
on it.
Yeah.
And I saw what she was doing, and I went over to her. She was lovely. She just didn't understand. All she has is a J1772
Mm-hmm.
level 2 plug-in, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
all of this is DC. And she said, I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. And it's like, here someone buys, hey, I got an electric Jeep, right? They think they have this, that they can charge it. So I showed her here. I don't know if do you guys have PlugShare over in Europe? It's the app PlugShare, or is there?
Yeah, I think we have, but
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
but
we have this app here that everyone uses called PlugShare, and you can put in
Mhm.
what kind of charging you need, and it shows you
Yep.
where they are. And meanwhile, she lives down in Harbor Point in Stamford, and there's a free J1772, basically one building away from where she lives. The building where she lives in Harbor Point in Stamford, like you have a dedicated charging spot with a level 2 charger. Someone stole her level 2 charger out of her apartment.
Oh no!
And she's paying for, she's paying for the spot and for the, like you are, with a dedicated EV spot. And so then she had to venture out to try and figure out, where do I charge this thing?
Another thing that's quite different in Europe compared to the States is that you normally have 110 volts in your sockets.
Yes.
We have 240 volts, so it's easier for us to have level 2 chargers. Actually, okay, we have to have them mounted by an electrician and stuff like that. But we usually don't have things like your NEMA plugs or things like that to plug into.
Right.
So we have them mounted on the wall, and you cannot take them away easily in a way.
Right. So they're fixed. Right. They're mounted. They're hardwired. And I just put in a level 2 last week, as a matter of fact, and it's so
I saw that with video.
Yeah. So we're super happy we have it. But for the most part, you're right. We have I get confused. Is it 110 volt or 120 volt, the standard in the States? But either way, instead of charging at 3 miles an hour, or maybe 1.2 or 1.4 kilowatts, we're now able to charge a little over 9 kilowatts, which is great. Well, I've learned a ton here today, Sarah. I really want to thank you for your time, and let's keep in touch. And I want you. I have strict orders for you. Okay, do not work anymore. This to me was you went to work today. You're like, I'm quizzing you on all this EV stuff. But listen, enjoy the rest of your vacation where you are in Spain. And,
I've actually stopped working, so I'm living on pension nowadays. So I don't work anymore.
Oh, I thought you were still in the IT business. Have a safe trip back to Stockholm, and keep educating people about EVs out there, because that's what we need to do. We'll catch you on the next episode of Out of Spec Dave. Thanks again for watching. And Sarah, thanks again for joining and reaching out. Anyone else who wants to come on the show, please send me an email at dave@outofspecstudios.com. Have a good one, everyone. Take care now. Bye-bye.